with which their name can be attached. And that after they're dead and gone, their legacy will be, well, he fought for this cause, or he fought for that thing. You know, that's why you never hear Yo-Yo Ma carrying a sign, you know, protesting eating meat. You never hear of famous orchestra conductors or musicians with at the Hollywood Bowl, you know, marching to stop, you know, fight global warming or, you know, traffic congestion in downtown. No, you never see them laying on the street to block traffic, you know, on Santa Monica. No, because what they do as a career, as an occupation, already has some value to it. I really believe that. I think certain kinds of music, certain kinds of art has some redeeming qualities to it. But the stuff that the people that are always engaged in some protest, usually what they're doing for a living doesn't have any real long-lasting redeeming quality to it. Replace that stand-up comic with 1,000 others. Could tell the joke just as well or even better. And so, how I got off on that, I have no idea. But here we are. Here we are, verse 22. Says, as a jewel of gold in a swine's snout is out of place, so is a fair woman which is without discretion. And in 1 Timothy 5:6 it says, but she that liveth in pleasure is dead while she liveth. A woman without Jesus Christ, no matter how beautiful and popular, is a walking dead woman. She's dead, doesn't even know it. She's on her way to hell, and she's just as good as there with the door shut behind her, unless she changes course and receives Jesus Christ. Verse 23 says, the desire of the righteous is only good, but the expectation of the wicked is wrath. The righteous seeks to be good. He seeks to do good. He seeks to obtain good as he goes through life. Certainly the Lord Jesus was the perfect fulfillment of this. Come forward real quickly to the book of John. John chapter 5. I'll just have you read one verse there. John chapter 5 and verse 30. John 5, verse 30. Jesus says, I can of mine own self do nothing. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is just, because I seek not mine own will, but the will of the Father which hath sent me. So the Lord Jesus always did those things that pleased the Father and sought only good. The second clause of verse 23 is also clear, but the expectation of the wicked is wrath. That doesn't mean the wicked is going through life expecting wrath, but that means wrath is what he has. What is what he's going to get. That's what he can expect for his sin. Not that he wants to, but the truth of the Bible is that's what he can expect. Because of his wickedness, he's going to get the wrath of God. Now verse 24 in our text, there is that scattereth and yet increaseth, and there is that withholdeth more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty. This proverb, and the next two verses, 25 and 26, are very much like it. Matches the New Testament's discussion on giving, financial giving. 2 Corinthians chapters 8 and 9 talk about the brethren taking up collections for the poor, other poor saints, and that God would reward in due time. God will reward for their faithfulness in giving. It also tells a great truth about capitalism, if you want to know. You make money by spending it, and you cannot get rich without spending riches in order to acquire more. Investment always precedes dividends, and dividends are based upon what you've invested. Warren Buffett did not get to become a multi-billionaire by hanging on to his wealth tightly and not putting it to use. He put it to use by buying more stock, by buying more companies that he wagered would bring an even greater return of profit for him. This is how the system goes, how the world works. The Bible is, the New Testament specifically, is not a manual or manifesto for communism. Although liberals like to think that. Well, shouldn't we give to the poor? Yes, you should, but Jesus said, the poor you have with you always. What are you going to do about that? In the Old Testament, the book of Leviticus, God told the Jews that when they would harvest their field, when they reaped the field, they were to leave one corner of the field untouched, so that the poor and the needy could come and they could gather for themselves as well. I believe it's probably wise, it's consistent with Christian charity for a nation, a government, to provide a fair opportunity to somebody else to succeed in business just as fairly as somebody else did, to start a business, to succeed in school and in education, and have the same opportunity that the other person has. That's about all the government can guarantee, that everyone has the same chance. But the government cannot guarantee everyone will avail themselves of it. The Jew couldn't go out and force the poor to harvest the rest of that field and feed himself, but it was there for his taking. Now, the government can't guarantee equal results. So that's what the liberals don't like. This is what the liberals hate. Let's go to verses 25 and 26. The liberal soul shall be made fat, and he that watereth shall be watered also himself. Now that doesn't mean if you vote Democrat, you're going to gain weight. But it says the liberal soul shall be made fat. But he's going to be blessed. You know, the word liberal, of course, has been degenerated and twisted to mean an international socialist. And liberals today, that word, the way it's used in modern times, means somebody who's more than happy to give away what belongs to someone else. They never reach in their own pocket and spend for things. So they want. That's why they love having control in Congress and in the Senate or in your city council. They love being in charge of telling you how your money is going to be spent. And the more power, the more higher up you go, the more money they have to play games with. Let me run through this story again. It bears repeating, but it's a very inspirational story. I would challenge anyone to go and find it on the internet. Just type in Davy Crockett and Horatio Bunce, B-U-N-C-E, and read that story. Davy Crockett was a real-life congressman from Tennessee in the 1830s. And one year he decided to go back to his district in Tennessee and visit the farmers, visit the people that were back home, and campaign for re-election. And as he was riding through the country, he came to a farm, and there was a man plowing his field. And so he timed his horse so that they would meet by the road around the same time. He could get off the horse and talk to this farmer. And he stopped and introduced himself, and the farmer said, "Yes, I know who you are, and you're probably out campaigning once again. And I got to be truthful with you. Although I voted for you last time, I don't believe I can vote for you again. And so you would be wasting your time." And he said, "If I understand," he said, "I live out in the country, but I get the newspapers from abroad to keep up to date on what's happening in the outside world. And I understand that last year Congress took an unconstitutional vote, and either your understanding of the Constitution of America is different than mine, but be that as it may, I don't think I can support you. We see differently on these issues." Davy Crockett said, "You've caught me off guard. I don't know what issue we might have voted on that was considered a constitutional debate." And Mr. Bunce says, "I read about a fire that took place in Georgetown, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C. He said, "I read that the Congress members went over there and worked all night to put this fire out. Hundreds of people's buildings and barns were torn down and burnt down." And he says, "You're exactly right. I never worked harder in my life." And he says that in Congress, someone introduced a bill that would allocate $20,000 to help those people rebuild. And he says that's an unconstitutional vote. Davy Crockett said, "You're going to have to educate me on this." And he said, "The Constitution gives you the right to provide for certain government departments, to keep the government running, to provide for common defense,